for now, we move into our wellness segment for this Saturday morning.
Weekend Breakfast with Sara-Jayne Makwala King
on CapeTalk.
On CapeTalk.
So as South Africans, we're often praised for being very resilient people, which we are, of course, but mental health professionals are increasingly warning that what we celebrate as resilience may actually be survival under constant pressure. From burnout and anxiety to emotional numbness and chronic stress, many people are outwardly functioning but inwardly struggling, and with pressures mounting in our homes, schools, workplaces, the need for accessible mental health support has never been greater. Joining us now is Denisha September, registered counsellor and programme coordinator at the South African College of Applied Psychology, or SACAP. Denisha, good to have you with us this morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Sara-Jayne. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm all right because I'm resilient, Denisha, you know, because we have to be, don't we? And I often think somebody sent me in a message the other day into the show, and I'm sure it was meant from a very good place, but they said, oh, SJ, your life is so wonderful, and you know, I suppose, and yes, elements of my life are wonderful, but there was a suggestion of, you don't have anything to complain about because your life is so great and you've got these two beautiful children and a great job, and all those things are true. I have got a great job and two beautiful children, but people see me for 3 hours a week on air. They don't see the rest of my life, and I'm saying me, I'm not trying to censor myself, but all of us, we've all got stuff, haven't we? We're all going through stuff. The thing that for me that really stands out from your media release is that South Africans often mistake survival for resilience. What's the difference between the two?
So I guess if we want to look into the difference or the comparison between the two, we'd have to look at a grassroots level, right? So survival is something that you do instinctively because your body is trained innately to cope in situations. But resilience is all about the long-term, positive, and non-maladaptive coping skills that we adapt as human beings in order to survive any type of crises. Resilience is more sustainable. Resilience is a lot better for a long-term health, and it just really helps with just preventing a lot of mental health issues in the future. So I guess the difference between the two is that the one is very maladaptive, it's very primal, and then resilience is very positive. It's very sustainable. It's healthier for you. And when you grasp the concept of resilience and you live it through your everyday life, you can just see the health benefits from the get-go. And it just really affects the community in a very positive way because they learn from you once you've, gotten there.
How do we identify that somebody is living in survival mode, Denisha?
Sure. This is a good question. Let's take the work environment for an example, right? One of the biggest ways in which we can see burnout or stress is usually towards the end of the year. As mental health practitioners often call it the most stressful time of the year because we have the most clients that time of the year. It's around September, October, and what usually happens is it's an accumulation of emotions and stress that now starts to boil over. But one of the ways in which we can see and sort of get it before it becomes that bad is through just initiatives within the workplace, finding out, having a needs analysis within the workplace where we can ask the hard questions to employees and sort of like create interventions before things boil over. One of the ways we can also see it is through maladaptive coping skills. We as South Africans love humor. You see it in everyday life. When COVID hit us, the first thing we did was turn to humor. But what we also do is we turn to substance abuse. We turn to violence often because we are unable to regulate. And oftentimes, one of the ways in which we can see, when this is going to boil over is through those patterns, through those behavioral patterns that happen earlier on within the work year, within your career, within your relationships with family, partners, etc., etc. Once things start to change, we need to take note of all the small changes in order for us to sort of stop, the big sort of reactions to underlying mental health issues that could be boiling over within us.
What are some of the warning signs then that somebody might be functioning outwardly but struggling internally? Because I'm so aware of stories that hit social media where people become so desperate that they make, that people are ending their own lives, and the people around them say, we never knew. So what, because somebody is functioning, we've become very good as people, I think, living in the modern world. I don't even think it's necessarily a South African thing, because we hear these stories coming from all over the place. But we've become very good at functioning outwardly while dying inwardly. So how on earth do we pick that up? What are you picking up as counsellors? What should our employers be looking out for, our colleagues, our friends, our loved ones, when we're checking in on each other, which I wonder if that's something that we do enough. But what are the signs that someone is functioning outwardly? Because, I mean, there's, you could be getting the kids to school, performing in your job, but nobody knows what's going on internally.
I think in order to sort of look at where that might start and come from, or what it might look like, is to look at the structure that exists currently. If somebody's operating outside of what they are contracted to do, maybe to prove a point or to prove themselves, that's usually where it starts, right? As human beings, we have this innate desire to impress. It's literally a survival skill. But what often then happens is we can't often tell the difference between overworking ourselves and then just trying to impress our bosses. So it starts really small, right? It's the long working hours. It's snapping at your children for no reason. It's sort of engaging in maladaptive activities with colleagues, whether it's unnecessary gossip. I mean, look, everybody loves a little gossip, but when the gossip starts to become very maladaptive, we also get concerned. But also the way that we treat ourselves. Are we looking after ourselves genuinely? And these are things that you can physically see. A colleague coming into work, disheveled, in a hurry, not looking how they usually look, not speaking how they usually speak, are often the earliest symptoms that you will pick up. The issue with mental health sort of symptoms and underlying issues is that oftentimes it does take a very long time to pick up. We do struggle to pick it up in the beginning because we're just that good. We're just that good at performing our roles. And so it's very important that we also look at, the coping skills and the coping mechanisms in place in our societies right now. Is it normalized to act a certain way when you're stressed? Are we maybe overlooking things because we don't take a moment to sit and reflect and think about how it is that we feel or how somebody makes us feel. So one of the earliest signs and symptoms is definitely just changes in behavior, changes in the usual sort of work or home life activities. Are we withdrawing? Are we allowing ourselves to do things that we don't usually do? Are we breaking our own boundaries? What is happening within our internal world that is suddenly breaking down to the point where, we have nothing left to hold on to?
I suppose my point was because if you're living it, you know that you're not right most of the time. Most people can identify inwardly, something's not good. But if you don't, I suppose my point was more about externally, other people noticing, so that it gets to the point where if, and again, are we putting this, is it the responsibility of the employers but to check on their staff? I would say to a degree, yes, but just check it, just being able to check in with other people, and looking at how other people, the other people in our lives are showing up and being aware of, how are they really doing? Because again, so many of us are functioning outwardly. We're doing all the things. You make a point about talking about creating psychological safety, and I suppose that becomes very relevant because we have become so good at masking and being performative and not performative, but performing that role. It might not be that people are ever going to identify that we don't feel okay. And therefore it does come down to us, but that can only happen where we feel a sense of psychological safety, where we feel that we are entering into spaces where where we can feel safe enough to speak about the stress that we're going through, the emotional distress that we're in. So what does psychological safety actually look like within, for example, a school, a workplace, or even within our own families?
I think psychological safety starts with emotional literacy, right? Exactly what you're speaking about when you're saying that, it's people will see you outwardly and how things change. But often we don't have the language to express ourselves as well. That's another barrier to why we don't reach out and why as communities we sort of just sweep it under the rug. So I think the first step to psychological safety is definitely emotional literacy, but also privacy and confidentiality, especially in spaces where you want psychological safety. Am I able to come to you with an issue, knowing that you're not going to speak to somebody else about it, or you're going to hold space for me in this moment? And sometimes holding space is not giving advice. Sometimes holding space is just active listening. It's just, giving somebody the time of day where they wouldn't have had that otherwise or anywhere else. Psychological safety is all about knowing that somebody's got your back. Somebody is consistently vouching for you through everything that you could be going through. I think in our society, we're currently experiencing global catastrophes as we speak. And one can say that we're, as normal citizens are just going on with life. No, we're not. It's affecting us. And psychological safety is important in that sort of space, in the conversations that we have with each other, whether it's at the table, at dinner time, whether it's at home, whether it's in the classrooms. Psychological safety is opening up about your own story. In counseling, we speak about countertransference, and you'll never really find a practitioner that does that often. But when we do it with a purpose. It's to relate.
What's countertransference?
Well, so countertransference is usually where in counselling your counsellor shares their personal story.
Right.
Yes. So let's say, for example, we're speaking about grief and I lost a loved one. What countertransference looks like in that space is me sort of just establishing the fact that, I too have lost a loved one, maybe recently or over the years. And this is how I coped. We have to be very careful with countertransference, of course, because sharing your story in a space like that is not always appropriate. It is the client's space, after all, right? Whether they're paying you for a service or receiving a service for free, it's really just needed for relational purposes. It's to tell you that I am here, I see you, and I hear you.
How can people get in touch, Denisha, if they are looking perhaps for counselling from a registered counsellor, if they're thinking, I'm at that point now where I would like to have a little bit of extra support? What would be their best first step?
SJ, we've evolved as counsellors in the social media space. So one of the first points of contact would be social media.
Wow,
I have a lot of myself and my peers on Instagram. Yeah. We are currently, I see a lot of my peers are having like TikTok pages, make videos, so we're quite accessible. We also have Psychology Today, which is an online platform where you can find practitioners within your area. You can also reach out to SACAP. So we're not just an institution that, equips registered counsellors with the necessary skills that they need. We actually have a really good network where we can refer, which is what we love to do. So there's a lot of platforms. I think each and every platform has one or two registered counsellors on it, which makes it very successful. We also get around with word of mouth.
Yeah,
So anywhere you get your knowledge from.
I like the idea of social media, because then you can get a vibe from somebody, and I think that's really important when you're looking into creating that therapeutic relationship with someone. Denisha, thanks very much indeed for your time. Good to have you with us this morning.